Hello parents and families, I am an online student at Dakota State University and I am also a student teacher currently at Hartford Elementary School. I created this presentation in regards to the special education process and just kind of breaking down all that information that goes into it because it can be overwhelming for a lot of people, so I just am hoping that this really helps you understand the process of it and the people that are involved and things like that. So, to start off with, um, during the 1800s, residential schools for individuals with special needs began to emerge. The first American residential school for those who were deaf was established in 1817 at Hartford, Connecticut by Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, which is a picture of him right here. And the Perkins School for the Blind, founded in Watertown, Massachusetts, was also the first school for the blind. Samuel G. Howe proved that those who were blind and deaf could be taught when Laura Bridgman, who was blind and deaf, was educated. Seeking education for his daughter, Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, Arthur H. Keller consulted the director of the Perkins Institution. It was from this institution that Anna Mansfield Sullivan came to teach Helen. The fame of the successful life of Helen persuaded many people that other people with disabilities could be educated as well. So I included the Perkins Institution here, and then a lot of people know of Helen Keller, and this is kind of the story of her life. So, legislation that led to special education today. Legislation for people with disabilities has been developing since the 1900s. With each new law or amendment to existing legislation, the programs for children and adults with disabilities have become more encompassing. During the 1900s, parents organized advocacy groups that became vocal and attracted enough attention to result in legislation to provide educational support to children with disabilities. In 1971, the Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children won a landmark case against the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It was a decision based on the 14th Amendment, which assures that all children, including those with disabilities, the right to a free and appropriate education. Decisions such as the one led to the passage of other laws. So here I kind of just inserted the rights of people with disabilities, using laws and policies to include people with disabilities. This is obviously a really impactful thing. And then the IDEA mandates parent participation. It stresses the importance of parents and contributions to their child's progress. So, very, very cool. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. A lot of us, you might have heard of the Section 504. Section 504 is a brief section of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It's basically a powerful law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. So it's a civil rights law. Since public schools districts receive federal funding, this section protects students with disabilities from discrimination in public schools throughout the U.S. Unlike the IDEA, no federal funds are available under this to help school districts meet the requirements of the law. It seems that educators have only taken notice of Section 504 in the last few years, and parents and advocates for children and youth with disabilities began requesting that schools provide their children and educational services and protection under Section 504. Children may have disabilities that were not included under the IDA, but were covered under Section 504. So a person is considered disabled to be under the Section 504 if they have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more of each person's major life activities, has a record of such impairments, and is regarded as having such an impairment. Also, major life activities include functions such as, caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and working. When a condition does not substantially limit a major life activity, the individual does not qualify for services under Section 504. So there can be a little bit of confusion on that. So it must be emphasized that Section 504 falls under the management of regular education. Students who have disabilities but who do not qualify for special education may still be eligible for accommodation under Section 504. This covers like a broader range of disabilities than the special education law, and it also requires public schools to provide students with a free, appropriate public school education. In addition, it ensures that students with disabilities are afforded an equal opportunity to participate in school programs. So, parents' rights and responsibilities. IDA 1997-2004 addressed that participation of parents in the development of their child's program. It states that the local education agency of the state education agency will ensure that parents are members of any group that make decisions on the educational placement of their child. Parents can examine all records and participate in meetings regarding the evaluations, placements, and free and appropriate publication education that the child will receive. So, rights and responsibilities for parents. I figured I'd link this just because I thought it was really good, but it basically kind of just bullets some of those rights and responsibilities that parents have. Basically, a few that I'll kind of point out here is parental consent is required before a child may be evaluated for the first time. Okay? Parents do have a right to obtain an independent education evaluation of their child, and parental consent is required for a child's initial special education placement. So even if the child is assessed and it's pretty clear that they need to be on an IEP, the parent still needs to be notified and they still need to give consent for that service. Um, Parents do have the right to challenge that and appeal that if need be, and parents are responsible for notifying the public agency if they plan to remove the child from the public agency for placement in a private school or public expense. Okay. They're also responsible for notifying the public agency if they intend to request a due process hearing. Yeah. So, what is this assessment process? Okay, assessment basically just means test. We use assessment just so it doesn't freak out students as much. Like a test, it's not so um, just that feeling. So, assessment process, basically the child is referred. Then they start doing the tests and kind of doing some different variety of tests to um, kind of figure out where the student is, where they're struggling, where they're excelling at, and just diving deeper into details like that. Then it's the classification. This does include the parents, and the team reviews assessments and the diagnostic data and classifies for special education based on the test results. The parent signature is required here. Then the IEP meeting is ongoing. So the individual education plan developed by team must be updated yearly, but the team or parent may request as needed, and as before, parent signature is required here. So placement. This is where the team decides placement based on the IEP. Parent signature is also required. Basically, what they mean by placement is, does this child need to be in the special education room 50% of the time, 90% of the time? How much can they handle it? Do they need to just be pulled out for certain subjects? Things like that. And then the evaluation team meeting. Teams evaluate child's total special education program. Um, includes parent progress at least yearly. So basically, the teacher evaluates daily as a child works on short-term goals and objectives. So, like I said before, the assessments can come in a variety of ways. It can be formative, it can be formal. Progress monitoring is a big one, is when basically the teacher is going to monitor your child. and just see how they're doing and see if they're meeting those goals on their IEP and how they're doing in the classroom overall. Who and what is involved? Anyone involved in the child's life and education might suspect a learning disability or small issue and ask specialists to explore it further. The first person to conduct an informal assessment is typically the classroom teacher, though a guardian or, pediatrician might start the assessment too. Um, a classroom teacher or pediatrician might request a referral to a medical specialist, a therapist, psychologist, or other specialists to focus on the particular area of concern. And then that's when the school special education teacher will start diving deeper and get involved as well. So, the IEP process. When a child exhibits learning or behavior difficulties, teachers first try to determine whether systematic changes to instruction or other aspects of the learning environment are um, impacting them. So this is referred to as the pre-referral process, and a team-based approach many schools use to help classroom teachers implement interventions for students with academic or behavior problems. Um, the, com- the referral that comes from parents, daycare professionals, public health nurses, doctors, or social service agencies. Then the next step is identification, where the referral has been made. A special assessment is carried out to determine whether the child has a disability that requires this special education service. And then the fourth step is eligibility, where the IEP committee creates different elements of the services required to plan and deliver an appropriate education framework. The next step is in the process is to create the actual IEP, and the IEP is formed, which includes the child's parents, educators, admin, and other specialists. At this stage, students' IEP and associated services commence. Accommodations are provided for both instruction and testing, along with a range of multidisciplinary services required from different providers to support the child's educational program. And then finally, reviews and evaluations are made once the IEP goals and strategies have been occurring. So, the IEP has a number of purposes and functions. Serves as a communication. It forms that puzzle piece form so that everyone's in the loop, everyone knows what's going on. It's a personal, individualized approach to helping this child reach their individual goals. Um, in writing, it's a commitment to provide services and resources necessary to enable a student with a disability to receive those needed special education services. So some services that might be provided, I listed here, it might be occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language, audiology, counseling, intervention, and then psychological services. So this is something that will be discussed at those IEP meetings and also monitored for what concerns that the teacher or parent or professionals may have that services might help that child succeed. So community organizations supporting individuals with special needs. We have Easter Seals, the Joseph Kennedy Jr. Foundation, the ARC, Special Olympics, which is right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is kind of cool, Autism Speaks, and Gordon Hartman Family Foundation. So great organizations. I also went ahead and listed Morgan's Wonderland here because the mission of Morgan's Wonderland is to provide a park that will nurture the minds and bodies of individuals with special needs and their families. So very cool. And then parents' rights. I listed the link here of just some more parents' rights. It covers a lot. So if you ever need to come back to this PowerPoint and come back and just kind of refer to it, that is why I listed it. But overall, parents have the right to seek and review all of their child's educational records, and school districts have the obligation to keep such records confidential. Parents have the right to seek various remedies in an impartial hearing, including compensatory or made-up services. They cannot seek money damages but may be able to recover reimbursement for